How is everybody doing? Burnt bear. Okay. Is my internet doing okay? Should be able to. Yeah. Looks like you guys can hear me. How's everybody doing on this fine last day before, you know, House of the Dragon drops and destroys our lives for about 2.5 months or so? Did I forget to make my sacrifice to the tech gods? You know what, Aaron? According to George R. R. Martin, it doesn't matter who you sacrifice to or what you sacrifice. It only matters that you have connections to the dragons, which I clearly do, as I am wearing my Green Ranger t-shirt, and that clearly gives me magical powers, much like a Valyrian sorcerer. Actually, I was looking at this thing, hang on. Um, when you look at the Green Ranger from Power Rangers, it's not that far off from what we're going to see from, like, the Greens in House of the Dragon. Like, you obviously have the dragons, then you have the dagger. Maybe that's how you use the, the Valyrian steel dagger after they put it into the flame. Like, Rhaenyra puts it into the flame, takes it out, and then plays a little song on it. And then from there, that's how you summon dragons. Oh yeah, you want Matt Smith in a bad wig? Oh boy. You are looking for 10 weeks of joy at that one. Yeah, that'd actually be pretty funny if that's how that dagger works. Just play a little tune on it. Let's see here. I did. I may have confused people because I put up all the streams ahead of time. So, uh, hang on a second. Be right back. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, we got a. I definitely did confuse literally everybody with that. Actually, a bunch of people unsubbed after I did that. I put up a whole bunch, like a playlist of all the future streams for after the episode, and then like 80 people or something all like unsubbed at once. I was like, what did I do? I planned ahead for once. All right, I guess that's worthy of it. Have I seen a preview of episode 1 yet? No, I haven't. I have. I only know the one thing from episode 1, which is in the video we're going to talk about today. I have seen no screeners. I've read some non-spoiler reviews. I mean, but there's also a lot of previews out there, like official ones, so it's going to be the Great Council 101s where it's going to start. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I am relatively unsullied. Although somebody a day or two ago sent me spoilers, or tried to, in my Twitter DMs. Didn't like that. Don't do that to me, guys. Um, yeah, I think we got everything going. Let me double check the camera. A little bright. I was told with the new OBS settings that it would save like your video settings, and it sort of did. Okay, there we go. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the other night I released a short about how to watch House of the Dragon. It was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek short. I bought myself a green screen, and I wanted to learn how to use it, and I didn't want to do it on something that like was going to be hard to write a script for, or something that was going to be hard to, I guess, act out. So I just chose something really stupid, like the information on how to watch the show and what time it will be on, that kind of stuff. A few YouTubers have made videos talking about episode 1 already. I'm sure they have. There were some that went to the premiere, more that have talked to people that went to it. There's a bunch of screeners out there too. So I am sure there are others who have made that content. I have not. I did not ask HBO for screeners or anything like that. Maybe I will in the future, but as of right now, people who did get screeners from HBO have seen up to episode 6. That's what all the reviews coming out online are about. But yeah, you don't have to worry about my stream. I will not. I'm not going to spoil you on what's going to happen because I can't. I am too dumb. Well, especially because I'm doing the streams after the episode. It'd be a little weird to, I guess, try and pretend like I just saw this if I had already seen like the first 6 episodes or something like that. But God love it. I bet there are people out there who will. We're going to go ahead and hit the button. We're going to get going here on the stream. Been chit-chatting for a little bit. Only a minor tech issue. I said this in the chat before I went live. I was watching the alerts thing. I had to turn them off because it was going through and announcing every patron I had ever gotten, one by one, dollar by dollar. It was insane to watch. It was also making a very loud noise, like a song or something I've never heard before. So yeah, not looking forward to that one. But anyway, here we go. Let's go ahead and play that spooky music. I hit the wrong button. Cool. That's how that works. Well, anyway, hello and welcome to another magical Saturday stream. At least the last one for about 10 weeks or so. Because, of course, tomorrow, House of the Dragon is coming to roar into our lives and disrupt everything about it. And nothing will be the same for about 2.5 months. So, you know, get ready for that one. It will be the last day of normalcy before the event. The event that changes everything. I wonder if anyone else got that reference from Mitchell and Webb. I love their little event sketch. Anyway, so we're going to stay on brand before we get into House of the Dragon coverage and how everything's going to change. We're going to talk about dragon dreams. We're going to talk about prophecy, children of the forest, glass candles, everything and anything that was in the video I released the other day, and also anything about House of the Dragon as well. I don't know how many we're going to talk about this thing today, the video I made, so just throw stuff in the chat. This is relatively unscripted as far as my streams usually go. I usually have like a 12-page outline that I'm like reading from as we're doing it. I just have a bunch of questions. So we're gonna chit chat. That's what's gonna happen today. Yeah, make sure you guys slam that MF and like button. Let's see here. If we get up to 75 likes, it'll be hat time. 100 likes, free t-shirt time. 125 likes, better hat time. That's how we'll do it. I just want to check on something. YouTube is telling me that there's something wrong with my bitrate. Are you guys seeing like the stream coming through at like a lower quality or something? I'm a little concerned at why it's telling me this. Maybe I need to do something in the... I'm not even sure if this is something I can do live. God, what the hell, OBS? Every time. Stream output. Oh, I guess I can turn that up. Alright, well, we just turned it up, so see what happens there. I might have a bad internet day going on. Well, anyway. That's a little strange. It's always excellent. It's telling me good. So yeah, I also wanted to say thanks before we get going. There was a PayPal from Maura Lee before the stream went live, because Maura is the MVP of all things to do with streams. She sent me a question, which I'll answer in a minute or two. Thank you so much, Maura, that, as always, doing way more than you have to, and it's always appreciated. Also, $5 from Danny McKay with the peace sign right back at you, buddy. And a new patron from the other day, just the letter R. Thank you, the letter R, for signing up. Thanks for that, buddy. If you want to support me in the stream, obviously you can go to patreon.com/JoeMagician. If you go to the $5 level and up, that's basically where you get all the other stuff, like access to the Slack, patron episodes, previews, all the good stuff. So what we're going to be talking about today is, some of you watched the video from the other day. Yeah, it's one of those things where I've known for a while that making content about like prophecy and dragon dreams and magic in A Song of Ice and Fire is not like the most popular thing to talk about, but it's one of the things I find the most interesting. It's one of those areas where George is really working hard at keeping things from the audience, but also having it have such a drastic impact. It's one of those things where it seems pretty clear that the end game of A Song of Ice and Fire, like, it's going to have a lot to do with those things, and it's one of those areas that doesn't super get talked about too much. Specifically when you're talking about like the origin of these things and, you know, how they all work together and where it's going with Bran Stark and stuff like that. I dropped the link in the chat if you guys want to watch it afterwards, I suppose. It's currently named Why the Targaryens Conquered Westeros. I played with the name a few times, so you may have seen it under a different one. But that's basically what the thing is. It's going to be well, we're like a day away. So there is it's tough to talk about because there is a spoiler in that video, and it has to do with what we'll see tomorrow in House of the Dragon. It will be in episode 1. It's going to be an important part of it. So I guess I won't say exactly what it is if you've managed to stay unsullied and stuff like that. But basically the idea is that the Targaryens have always been guided by dragons in some way, although it's probably not the ones you're thinking of. It's not just the ones that they ride, it's the ones inside their minds, the ones that they dream of, the ones that supposedly show them the future. It's like the very first thing House Targaryen does that we know about doesn't have to do with them jumping on a dragon doing something impressive. It has to do with, obviously, Daenerys the Dreamer. It has to do with the fact that they were the only ones to escape the doom of Valyria. And how did they do that? Well, it's prophetic dreams. That's the key to the house. That's the thing that George really wants us to know. And actually, fun fact, if you go back and read A Song of Ice and Fire, before the dragons are hatched by Dany, the dreams of them show up first. She's one of the primary dragon dreamers we can see, although I don't think a lot of people think of her that way. Mostly because it's not explicit early on. I think that Dany is having dragon dreams, that she's literally seeing things from the future. Like, she does see her dragons hatch before they show up. I think there's literally a scene where she sees Drogon. Yeah, Kieran Grant, it is the hour-long video I put out the other day. I think it may have confused people into thinking that was a stream because of the length and the way the thumbnail looked. But no, that was a produced video. But anyway, so it is very important to them and to where that story is going and where House of the Dragon is going to go, along with pretty much Amanda Crowfoot's Honor and I have talked about this a lot in the past, how it's this unstated element to their entire family, that where they're going and why they're going there is in some way, or depending on the person, it seems to change quite a bit how each person's reacting to it, especially each monarch. But it's hard to deny that these things are a huge part of the story that will only increase in importance as it goes on. So I think that's my plug for that video, I guess. That's why you should go watch it. It's a lot about what makes the Targaryens special and different, but then also sort of getting into the implications of that. And that has to do with like the Children of the Forest and Glass Candles, Green Dreams. I even at the end I even got into like ideas of like destiny and free will, which is actually a comment that I got from Curtis Franks. Curtis lit up that comment section. He was writing tons of them, and one of them was like, "Oh, this has to do with physics." I'm like, "Yes, it does. It's not just a fantasy thing." Yes, I'm sponsored by the alphabet. That's right, Mallory. Also, right before I went live, I don't know if you guys saw this. George released, or HBO released, a new video talking to George R. R. Martin, where he was wait, what is it called? The video is called George R. R. Martin on Dragons and Their Magic. And I made a quick Twitter thread before I went live. Oh, it's not a problem, Curtis. It was good I was happy to read them. I was just saying, you hit on a part of it that I thought about putting in the video, but I didn't. But anyway, so George put out a video where they interviewed him about like the relationship of magic to fire and dragons and how the whole thing's work. And there was a particular quote that that really stuck out to me, and it probably will to other people, where maybe for one of the first times George really clarifies what's going on with his magical system, and this has a lot to do with what I was talking about. The quote is, "The Valyrians, while practicing their blood magic, their fire magic, noticed it didn't matter when you pronounced the spell right or made the correct sacrifice to the correct god, but what is your relationship to dragons?" And he goes on to talk about that more, but basically the idea is the Valyrians noticed that being closer to dragons in some way made magic work. Which I guess in a sort of way you can look back at the rest of the story and be like, well, this is just true. Like after Dany's dragons hatch, you know, there's the story in Karth of the guy who can now do the fire ladder. The glass candles are burning. The alchemists are like, our wildfire spells are working. So that part isn't surprising, that the dragons have a lot to do with magic. I think the surprising part, the thing that really kind of took me aback, is how he said how it didn't matter if you pronounced the spell right or made the correct sacrifice to the correct god, because a lot of the magic that we've seen in A Song of Ice and Fire proper, and the way it's been told to us, especially by characters like Melisandre, is that, you know, king's blood and the idea of sacrificing things, you know, only death can pay for life or something like that. And then George just comes out and said, well, maybe. Like, it may be that the person is more magical than burning alive the right person is how you get effects, which would make it even more tragic what's going on with Melisandre and Stannis and the followers of R'hllor, and how much they're how many people they're killing. And George is saying like, I don't think it really does that much. That's right. Crouching Panther, Hidden Dragon. That's right. The alchemists said their wildfire was easier to make. Yeah, they've there's a line where I forget, Halin or something like that. He asks Tyrion, he's like, have you heard anything about dragons being back? Because like, our spells are working. And they hadn't really for a while. Or they were working better. That seems to be the idea, is that when it's not that magic was gone in the whole world with the dragons gone, but it was severely limited. And certain things, it seems like with like glass candles, just weren't working at all. They were making wildfire, but I guess it wasn't as good, is the kind of the idea there. Which is kind of fascinating to think about. that George is explicitly linking fire magic use as almost like it's not something like in other fantasy stories where like you have to know the specific spells and you have to say it with the right intonation and you have to move your hands in a certain way. He's kind of saying it's more like an intrinsic property of the people that can use it. Yeah, I didn't think Melisandre made any sense either in who she decided to burn, especially because she was like, I think the one that really doesn't make sense is where she's like, oh, well, Mance Rayder's a king, therefore his child has king's blood, therefore they must be like, there must be value in burning them. I'm just like, oh. Mance like declared himself a king from nowhere. Why? Is R'hllor like some kind of blood magic accountant? In the background, does he have like a table and he looks up like, okay, well, how closely related is this person to a particular magical or royal line? And if they're this close, I'll give you this much effect. Like, it just seemed like she was kind of making it up a lot. I think that's kind of the idea. George has said that he made Melisandre have a POV mostly because she's one of the more misunderstood characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. And I think one of the things you're supposed to understand about her, and one of the things that perhaps a lot of people miss, is that you're supposed to be highly skeptical of what she's doing. And in much in a similar way to the prophetic dream stuff I was talking about in my video, that it's not that Melisandre doesn't have visions, and it's not that she doesn't have insight. It's just that she gets it wrong. And that's not atypical. That's the norm. Nobody gets it right. The only person, this is one of my favorite things about when you're talking about like prophetic dreams and magic in A Song of Ice and Fire. There's literally one person who gets their dreams correct, and that's the Ghost of Highheart, because she doesn't even try. She gets them, and then she just sort of lets them go. She's like, this is what I saw. I don't know what it means. All magic has a price. Maybe. It very well could. I don't know. I'm just sort of turning over the quote George gave in my head a few times, and just sort of, this was literally like 10 to 15 minutes before we went live, so I haven't really thought about it too much yet. But it makes you wonder, like, in terms of the dragon eggs hatching, if it's not a spell and if it's not like some sort of correct sacrifice, then that tells you it's probably the people hatching them and not the way you do it. Like, we've seen a lot of clips from the show where they're shoving dragon eggs into braziers and like apparently trying to heat them up, but that might not have anything to do with it. It could be sort of a what's the idea? Placebo, where the reason they're hatching has nothing to do with like putting them near heat or anything like that. It has to do with the people around them, and if like maybe there's something magical about them that causes them to hatch or something like that. I'm not really sure, but it definitely doesn't. It definitely calls into question a lot of what the Targaryens are doing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of ritual that they do that doesn't have any real basis in effect. Maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like harmonics or something. I mean, there's definitely a sense, like I was talking about earlier, Dany saw her dragons before they hatched. So that's strange that she could see them before they showed up. So if you apply that to the rest of the dragons, maybe there has to be some sort of soul or psychic connection between the egg and a dragon rider before it hatches. Although I do still like the idea. I think I talked about this with Bookshelf Stud and Poor Quentin a while back, about how I think that the reason the Targaryens had so many dragon seeds is that they use them to sacrifice to try and hatch dragon eggs. That there's like a pit of somewhere in Dragonstone, there's like a room of bones filled of all the children they sacrificed to hatch their dragons. Still could be something like that, but it is curious. This is one of those things where George has unexpectedly, coming into the show, been much more forthright about telling people what's going on in his universe, like really unexpectedly so. Well, I guess it isn't really a spoiler. He said in an interview the other day, I think with Vanity Fair, I think that was it, where Aegon explicitly conquered Westeros in order to, because of a vision of the White Walkers he saw coming. So that's not really a spoiler. I don't remember George saying that kind of stuff before. I went back and I looked at like the interviews he had done around the time of Fire and Blood when he released it, and he was definitely saying it, but he also wasn't saying it directly. He wasn't saying this is true. He was saying like, oh, well, there are theories about this. And then there was an example in The World of Ice and Fire where somebody, what was the quote? It was like something about the Old Town Tower and like where it came from, which looks to be false, but then they followed it right up with the idea that Aegon definitely used prophecy to come to Westeros. And it's like he's been playing it as a maybe rather than a definite fact. And now he's just like going like, yeah, man, this is what's going on. The sacrifices don't really do anything. No magic spells. Yeah, that's right, Aaron. Like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with Ego's failed children. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be something George would put into his world. Well, Kieran Grant, I think the seven have all ritual and meaning nothing. It seems Valyrian sorcery definitely does have something. Oh, also, I wanted to say, what do you guys think of my new backdrop? Built myself a bookcase. You can sort of see, wait, over here. You can sort of see behind them. I put the calendar art behind each of the books. This is my Gurm shelf right behind my head. And then below it, you've got The Expanse, Shattered Earth, Patrick Rothfuss, the Witcher series, which I'm currently reading. I'm most of the way through Blood of Elves at this point. I used to have, just like off camera over there, I used to have stacks of books just kind of sitting there that I had no space for, and it just kind of annoyed me. And I thought going into the season I should do something to, I don't know, make it look a little better, because it was like a weird I had this bookcase, then I had the small one, and then I had like the ladder one. The ladder one's over there now, but now it's just a drink cart. Hey, I'm glad you guys enjoy it. I think it looks pretty cool. Although it did remind me of how many books I have, where I have like the first book in a series and I don't have the rest of it. So at some point I'm going to have to actually go through and read all these. I think about half of them I've read at this point. Let's see here. That's kind of my way. I start a lot of series just to see what I think of them, and then I buy the next one if I like it. But yeah. Oh yeah. So let's go ahead and do some question stuff. I think I rambled for a while. Oh, make sure you guys slam that MFing like button. All right. So I wanted to go to the one from Maura Lee. She sent this with her PayPal. Again, thank you so much, Maura. I have read the first 3 books of The Expanse, Curtis. I haven't read the rest of them. I had a whole plan where I was going to read them one by one and then like compare them to the show. But then it got pointed out to me that they diverge quite wildly, and I guess they didn't do the last book, or what, they like cut one of the books. So I guess that's not really a plan. I did really like them. So that's not really, it's not really an indictment of what I think of them. I think they're great books. I just haven't gotten around to finishing them. The Blood of Elves is a weird book, though. It's just been, I'm at the point where it's like 20 pages of just kings talking about what they want to do. That was a strange one by me. So the question for more, to send in a super chat too. Let's do the super chat first. $10, thank you so much more. Is this one of the reasons that Euron wants a dragon? To reinforce the power of his magic as well as give him ruling political power? Almost certainly. If there is one character in A Song of Ice and Fire who is explicitly tuned into weird magic shit and sees things on a different level, that poor Quentin has been very diligent about detailing for all of us, it is Euron Greyjoy. He wears Valyrian steel armor, he has dragon binder, he's basically trying to make himself into a Valyrian sorcerer, he's engaging in blood sacrifice at this point, like he's gonna quite clearly kill Thalia Flowers, who's carrying his child. It looks like he's gonna kill Euron Greyjoy, who I guess has king's blood too, if you believe in that kind of thing. So I would guess that is why Euron wants a dragon, not just for the conquest ability, but for the idea that it will make all the that it will make everything else he wants to do magically happen. He's probably right about that, especially with George's quote from that video. Yeah, Euron's probably right that the dragon is more important than knowing the magical words or sacrificing correctly. The dragon will make it all work. Good question, Maura. And the other one from her, she said, we know that Targaryens had dragon dreams that help in certain outcomes, like worrying about the doom of Valyria, for example. Oh, I'm sorry, I just remembered. There is one other person who got their dream right. Daenerys the Dreamer. She's the only Targaryen who has successfully had a dream, predicted the outcome, and avoided it, which is kind of crazy. Did any of the characters in Hot D have any dreams that could help them prevent their internal wars and eventual fall of their house? I think we're definitely going to get the idea that Viserys has dragon dreams. I mean, we've seen it in the promos. He talked about how his dream seemed clearer than reality or something like that. And he describes all the classic things we see from dragon dreams. The dragon's roaring. He sees complicated images he can't quite place. And then also, actually for the thumbnail for this video, for this stream, I put in a picture of Viserys like playing with his Valyrian Steel City. And I noted on Twitter that that is actually not uncommon for dragon dreamers, that they seemingly have this consistent idea of a gleaming white city. Aerys has it. Aerys II. It's one of the things that's mentioned in terms of like one of his crazy ideas. He wanted to build a second wall far to the north. Turns out he was right about that one. They maybe needed another wall. His other one was that he saw on the other side of the bank from the Blackwater, he saw a gleaming white city, like a perfect, beautiful one. And he like wanted to build it. And everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? We're not building another King's Landing. But if you look at what Viserys is looking at in the... actually, let me see if I can pull this up real fast. I probably won't be able to pull it up particularly fast. No, I can't. I don't have that on... Unless somebody wants to send me a link to the picture, I'll see if I can grab it. But yeah, it seems very likely that Viserys is seeing things in the future, that he's seeing dragon dreams, and he's also reacting to ones that his ancestors had. And that's one of the complicated things. And George talked about this in that article I was talking about, the one with him and Ryan Condal, where he talked about Aegon the Conqueror, is that quite quickly the Targaryens have realized that just because they dream it, they don't know the time frame. Like, for instance, I make it sound in my video like Daenerys got the dream and they just up and left. But they up and left, and then like 12 years, or like 7 to 12 years later, then the doom came. It was not, for quite a while, I'm sure Aenar and the rest of the Targaryen family were like, what do we listen to Daenerys for? God, this sucks. Westeros is the worst. What are we even doing here? You know, that kind of stuff. Don't forget about the children of Maekar. I don't think any of them had dreams of a city that I remember. But who knows? We don't really know that much about, for instance, what Aerion Brightflame may have seen if he had his dreams. Like, Aemon claims they all had them. So it's quite possible that maybe Aerion dreamed of this same city. It appears to be a Valyrian city that Viserys is modeling, which is actually kind of funny. It's like there are some really good takes on Twitter where it's just like people are looking at the picture and they forget on the other side Alicent is sitting there looking extremely annoyed. Where it's just like, stop working on your stupid Valyrian city model. Like, come back to bed. Like, we have other things you have to do. And Viserys is like, no, I have to paint this one rock. And he's like working on a dragon and a rock or something like that to put into the right place. I did talk about this in, I think, the Pyres and Blood video, but the idea that George is drawing on from that I think he used for Aerys II, and probably the same thing that's happening with Viserys, is actually a H.P. Lovecraft thing, where very commonly the people in Lovecraft's world, when they have crazy dreams, especially of like faraway places and stuff like that, it's very often like these giant, beautiful, like perfect white cities that are all empty. And then a few times Lovecraft has his characters go to them and they're like these cities of the gods kind of idea. So I think to get back to Marley's question, I think definitely we're going to see that Viserys struggle is definitely going to have an internal struggle, that he's going to have his dragon dreams of what he thinks is going to happen. And he's going to have to try and play those off the practical reality of his life of being the king of Westeros. And that's one of the things I think that made it really hard for the Targaryen monarchs. And one of the reasons, they get the reputation for the coin flip thing. It's that they are sort of playing on a different level. And they can't really tell anybody because everyone will think they're nuts for believing in dreams. But when you look at somebody like Daenerys the Dreamer, they'd be crazy not to listen. It's the only thing that saved them. The only reason they're in Westeros is because they followed these things. So they sort of have to, but also they don't really want to admit to it because then they'll seem just insane to their subjects and lose credibility. Expecting to have Rhaenyra have them too. That would definitely be on the table. I think that we're going to find out that Rhaenyra's another one of those characters where when you read Fire and Blood itself, there's a lot of questions about her decision making and not really sure what she's doing. And the Maesters and Mushroom are just kind of like, oh yeah, well, we don't know why she did this. It's quite possible that it's the same reason we're talking about here, that she's trying to balance the idea that the world might end soon, along with whatever kind of dream she had, or Viserys had, or Aegon had, or even if they still have Signs and Portents, the book from Daenerys, and trying to balance that against, again, what's going on in her real life. Daenerys in particular really, really struggles with this, where she's always she's thinking constantly about the House of the Undying prophecies, and she's thinking about like, oh, who are the three betrayers, betrayer for blood, betrayer for gold, and stuff like that. And it's like, it's constantly going through her head trying to see how these prophecies fit to her real life. And she sort of has the idea that I'm talking about, where she quite quickly realizes she shouldn't tell people about this stuff, because when she does, they kind of go like, what the hell are you talking about? Jorah basically says the same thing. She comes out of the House of the Undying, she's like, I saw all these things, and Jorah's like, they gave you Shay the Evening, like, it didn't mean anything, they don't know anything. But Dany doesn't believe that, and it's gonna be the same thing here. Mesopotamian cities, I think Lovecraft always made them look Egyptian, like sort of a ancient Egyptian cities. I think that was his reference. I don't know. I'm not sure what the Valyrian architecture is supposed to look like. It's all made of diffuse white stone, I think. I don't know if George is explicitly... Actually, I'd have to... I think in the image it does kind of look like ancient Egyptian stuff, so maybe that's what they're going for. Let's see in the chat. Okay, so Egg the Sixth had the theory. Okay, what's the theory here? I think Viserys hasn't ridden another dragon because it seems like he's seeing Balerian's memories of Lyra. That's how he knows what it looks like. Oh, so like Balerian's living a second life in Viserys? Is it Persian? I'm not that super... It just... I know Lovecrafts are explicitly ancient Egyptian, or kind of like a pop culture version of ancient Egyptian. I'm not really sure what George is drawing on. Yeah, it would be interesting if like there's a second life element going on between Balerion and Viserys. I've in the past wondered, like we know explicitly that when the Stark kids die, they go into their second life with the direwolves. Jon does it. We know he goes into Ghost. Robb went into Grey Wind upon his death. I've wondered if when Lady was killed, if she went into Sansa. Like if it's a door open one way can go, you can walk through it from either direction. That would be kind of cool if if a dragon rider loses their dragon if they live on in them, or if it goes the other way. Are there like Targaryen second lives in a way? So when you're talking about Balerion, he's had multiple riders. He had Aegon the First, he had Maegor. Like, do those two kings in a way live on within Balerion? Kind of like in the way that we see from Varamir Sixskins. George has said there's not a ton of overlap there. Where he says that skin changing and dragon riding are different. But it'd be a cool idea if they were closer in that way. I know that there's also been theories for a while that like Dany's dragons have Theris and Khal Drogo in them, and maybe Rhaegar because of the names, where it's Rhaegal for Rhaegar, Viserion for Viserys, and then Drogon for Drogo. It'd be kind of interesting if that's like the souls that are contained in their dragons, that kind of thing. Although it does get a little wonky. It's like, how would she get Rhaegar's soul and why would it go into a dragon? But yeah, it's not a bad... I like the idea, Egg. It would be interesting if some part of Balerion is still speaking to Viserys in a way. What made Nettles able to ride her dragon? Ooh... I think we're going to get an answer to that one in probably season 2 or 3. Oh, that's right. Rhaego, the unborn child for Rhaegal. There you go, Mallory. You're right. It oscillates between the two. Some people think it's Rhaegar. Some people think it's Rhaego. Obviously, the names work. So what made Nettles able to ride her dragon? So we get 2 stories. Well, kind of 3 stories. The first one is that she rode Sheepstealer, and that basically she tamed it. That she used, she would constantly bring Sheepstealer food to essentially tame it into liking her. So, I mean, that works on this like a basic animal level. That is one way to tame a wild animal, is to feed it and make it like you. It's a little tougher with dragons because they are very different, I guess. Their temperaments and their ability to kill people makes it a little sketchy one way or the other. So that's a really easy one that requires no magic. She basically just bribed it. And it kind of makes sense if you're looking back at the history of Valyrians and dragons. If you're trying to imagine how did they first get to ride dragons, because it seems the dragons pre-existed the Valyrians. So somebody obviously had to tame one, right? So it would make sense if Nettles did the same thing. The second idea is that she is a secret dragon seed. So the Targaryens and the Velaryons are well known for having these quote-unquote dragon seeds, which much in the way that the Ironborn have their cute word for their slavery. It's called thralls. The Targaryens just produce tons of bastards. They have a very different idea of sexuality and monogamy, basically, where they kind of don't believe in monogamy. They only do because the faith makes them. And they tend to have just a lot of casual sex, and they do it with their vassals. So there's quite a lot of what's known as dragon seeds or bastard children on Dragonstone and also on Driftmark from the Velaryons. It's just kind of a thing for them. Hang on a second. So Nettles is from... Where's Nettles from? I think she's from Hull, I believe. She grew up on Spicetown in Hull on Driftmark. Brown-skinned girl who unexpectedly was able to tame a dragon. So it very well could Nettles be Leaf in Glamour? No, I went really hard against that theory a long time ago. Like, the fact that her name is plant-based does not mean she's a child of the forest. That's like a crazy idea. But it is not unreasonable to imagine that one of the many Velaryons on Driftmark had a bastard child with somebody that lived near the docks, and so much like how the strong children who are half Targaryen, half strong can ride dragons, it would not be crazy to assume that a half Velaryon dragon who may have dragon rider blood could also produce somebody. Sorry, my voice is going again. Talking too much without drinking. Sorry, it's not crazy to assume that the same thing could happen there. The same, if Jace Velaryon can ride a dragon, then a half Velaryon could too, probably. So that's the dragon seed idea, that she just has secret Valyrian blood, and that's what makes it work. Although there is sort of it's not really an issue. The strange thing is that she rides a wild dragon, and the wild dragons reject almost everybody who tries to ride them. They hate people trying to ride them. Now, in a sense, it kind of makes sense. Like, they've never had dragon riders. They've always been independent. But when you look at actually the dragons that are living on Dragonstone at the time, most of them who are formerly had dragon riders are essentially living the same lives. Like, after the death of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, Vermithor and Silverwing basically live as wild dragons on Dragonstone. They have no riders. They just kind of hang out. So I guess there's sort of the idea that they're kind of like Broncos or something like that, or Mustangs, where they're very tough to tame because they never have before. But even Targaryens, like pure-blooded Targaryens, have had a lot of problems with the wild dragons. So I think this is a long way of coming around to the idea, why was she able to ride a dragon? It's unclear how she was able to get Sheep Stealer, and why she didn't really get one of the mainline dragons, one of the ones that came from Valyria. And I think that kind of works more towards the idea that she has Velaryon blood in her. I have this theory I'm going to make probably after the season ends, talking about how I think the wild dragons on Dragonstone are leftovers from the Velaryons. Like, they had secret dragons and they just sort of lost control of them, that kind of thing. But there's also the possibility she's a secret Targaryen dragon seed and not a Velaryon one. Her being from Driftmark makes it sound like she should come from the Velaryon family, but Targaryens travel. They go to Driftmark. It's entirely possible that she comes from one of those families. Now, there's sort of a Rey Skywalker thing going on with Nettles, where it's not... People like different ideas based on what it means for Nettles. there's a lot of people that don't like the secret dragon seed idea because they love the idea that Nettles came from nowhere but was able to do the same thing as these Valyrians were able to do, the Dragon Lords, and she's just as good as they are, and anyone could ride a dragon if they want. But also, George is pretty explicit that he's made every other dragon rider that we know about have literally magical blood. So it's a little tough. Like, well, I'm sorry, Rey Palpatine, as her name actually is. It was the same kind of thing. There were some people that really loved the idea that Rey in Star Wars was nobody, that she came from nowhere and she was better than everyone else. And then, of course, in the third movie, they basically said, never mind, she has the most magical blood, and that's why she's so powerful. So it kind of goes both ways. It's not really a question of proof at this point because we don't have any. Maybe House of the Dragon will answer that at some point. But I don't know which way. I think, knowing George, I lean towards that she is a dragon seed, that she's a bastard of some Valyrian dragon rider, or that she's a bastard of a Targaryen or something like that, just because I know George leans that way really hard. But it's really just a matter of which story you like better, I guess. I don't think there's really a definitive answer. Or not yet, I guess. Sorry, my phone just went off. I probably just scared everyone that that has ever played Metal Gear Solid. My bad. Alright, there we go. So that's my long-winded answer on if Nettles is a dragon rider. So let's grab a few more questions from the video. Yeah, Sanrixian and Aegon the Sixth were talking about this in her drawing stream the other night, and it kind of stuck in my head, and I guess Lady Gwyn has talked about it before, that, yeah, I guess it really depends if you think the wild dragons were there before the Targaryens arrived, or if they are just wild offspring of the ones they brought. Like, is the cannibal the child of Balerion or one of the other dragons or something like that? Oh yeah, so anyway, from the patron Slack, Archmaester Emma, she watched the video and then wrote a series of essays for me to read, which I thought were really good. It's always good to see. I really do love the idea of seeing what you guys think of the videos, and that they're not just, I guess, entertainment, that I like being able to make you guys think and trying to imagine what you've read and what you know in a different way. That's kind of what I like doing. And so when I see these kind of things, actually, this is going back to Curtis Franks, who is like, oh, I'm sorry about all the comments. No, that's perfect. I love seeing that stuff. I love seeing what other people think about it. So Emma's first thought was, Viserys seems pretty set on naming Rhaenyra heir. Could he have solved the prince/princess mistranslation as well, and just got lost to history with the dance not going Rhaenyra's way? So I think this is a really insightful idea, and I love the imagination behind it. She's talking about the idea that Maester Aemon talks about, that that the reason he's talking about Daenerys and how he thinks she's the prince that was promised, and he notes that the word used in the Prince I Was Promised prophecy is ungendered, that it could mean prince or princess, in the same way that dragons can switch from male to female, kind of like, I guess if you've seen Jurassic Park, they talk about the frogs that can change depending on if there's too many males or too many females. Yeah, Hindy. Yes, please smash the like button as well. 75 likes for putting on a silly hat, 100 likes. Somebody's getting a free t-shirt from my threadless shop. But yeah, so Emma's idea here is that maybe Aemon wasn't the first one to see that. Maybe that's part of the reason, like thinking about Aegon the Conqueror's dragon dreams, and perhaps Viserys' own dreams, and how he seems dead set on Rhaenyra being his heir, Perhaps that he heard the prince that was promised prophecy, or he had his own version of it, and he made the same connection that Aemon does. And he says, well, it doesn't have to be a prince, it could be a princess, especially since he speaks High Valyrian. And that may be, he may have convinced himself that Rhaenyra was the princess that was promised. She would be the one to lead the dragons against the long night and end them. And that's really not a crazy idea, and I think it's a really insightful one, because so many Targaryens think that way. Rhaegar thought that way. Aemon thinks that way. Clearly, Aegon the Conqueror thought that way. They're always trying to find the three heads of the dragon and the prince that was promised, and they're always trying to fit their different lives to it. It's actually kind of a fun meta thing. I talked about this in the video, but that to be a Targaryen and to have these dragon dreams basically makes you a Redditor. They're constantly trying to weave out the difference of the prophecies and try and figure out which one's real, how does it apply, who's actually it. And yeah, that would be a really cool idea if Viserys himself, that's part of the reason that he cannot name, he feels he cannot name Daemon nor Aegon as his heir, because he thinks he solved it. That'd be a very, very spicy idea for the show to show. Obviously I don't know, because again, I haven't seen any screeners. I don't know what's happening other than what's in Fire and Blood. So very good comment from Emma. I love that one. That was really cool. It's that kind of extrapolation that makes for very interesting thinking about the whole thing. It also makes me wonder if we're going to see a copy of Signs of Importance, Daenerys the Dreamer's book. Amanda, or Crowfeet's daughter, and I talked about this in the comments on the video, where I wonder if we're going to find out that one of the books that Rhaenyra is reading underneath the weirwood tree actually is Signs of Importance. That if at this time they still have that book. Can imagine Viserys on his laptop posting wild theories on Reddit. Yeah. That's right. He's one of those. He's just another Redditor trying to solve the thing. Well, okay, so dragons wake from stone and bleeding star. Oh my god, it's Rhaenyra. Be kind of wild, but it's probably true. When you look at all the different Targaryens, like for sure, Amanda talked about this a while back, that Baelor the Blessed, his reaction to probably having dragon dreams himself or knowing about the prophecies is to try and basically avoid them. He's like, well, if I just do the opposite, then nothing will happen. And he probably saw the Blackfire rebellions coming, and instead he accidentally made them. And that could be why. There's a weird detail that after Daemon Blackfire is born, or Daemon Rivers at the time, Baelor like loses his shit and goes into like 30 days of fasting and prayer. And the reason very well could be that he believed he was avoiding the future, the negative futures he saw, and then accidentally caused it. And he's like, oh my god, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I get into a lot into my video, talking about the idea of like free will and what this prophecy really means, that if they always come true, then the fact that people get the dreams changes nothing. Like, it's not like like George seems to have designed it, and it seems like House of the Dragon's going to do the same thing, that that the existence of true prophetic dreams changes nothing about the future that's coming. Therefore, that kind of calls into question if there's really any choice in these characters' lives, if they can really do anything about it. And it's quite possible Baelor the Blessed is going on that way. Yeah, prophecy will bite off your prick. It's the sword without the hilt. You know, it's a big problem. And it's one that I don't think many of the dragon dreamers really get to. Like, some of them do. I think that probably drove Daron the Drunkard really nuts inside, realizing that he could not avoid them, and he couldn't avoid getting them either. It's like, all right, I guess I'm in control of nothing. especially after the Ashford Meadow thing. That must have really screwed with his head. He kind of goes off the rails after that. Rhaenys and Daemon's dragons look similar, and Rhaenyra's looking similar can make the dragon dreams confusing in the succession crisis. Yeah, that's the other point about it, Egg. The idea that George has literally written it so that the dragon dreams are basically impossible to interpret. Like, my favorite example is the one from the Mystery Night, where Daemon the Second Blackfire dreams an egg hatching at White Walls, and that it will be a real dragon, it will be his. And then Duncan the Tall will be a member of his Kingsguard. So Daemon finds Duncan, offers him to basically be a member of his Kingsguard in the future. And then George basically goes like, aha, it wasn't a real dragon egg, and it wasn't a real dragon, it was metaphorical. And it's like, what are you supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with the metaphorical dragon egg dragon dream? There's no shot. So it's going to be quite ridiculous for them to figure it out. House Bellaris survived the doom. There definitely were Valyrians that survived the doom, and they were off in the colonies. But I'm pretty sure everyone except Orion and the Targaryens died in the doom, right? I think all the other 39 families minus Orion were dead. And no dragon riders were allowed outside of Valyria. So it's not to say there isn't dragon riding blood outside of the mainland Valyria at the time of the doom, but there was nobody who actively owned dragons anywhere else in the world. Well, at least as far as within the Valyrian Empire. Yeah, metaphorical dragons. What the hell? Let's grab another question that I got from the video. Curtis Franks asked me, and I actually didn't know the question of this, and I put it on Twitter, and people came up with some really good answers. Do the Baratheons ever demonstrate dragon dreams? So I kind of opened this door in my video because I was talking about the Blackfires, and I said, like, actually, this was for for Pat Doherty, basically. I threw a bone to Blackfire supporters out there, and I said that, you know, as far as dragon dreams go, it seems to be related to the bloodline rather than what name you call yourself. So as Daemon II has them, as far as the dragon dreams are concerned, it doesn't matter if he's a Targaryen or a Blackfire, it's the same thing. So the obvious question is, what about the Baratheons, who are supposedly coming from Orys Baratheon, who was half Aegon the Conqueror's half brother, with the rumors about him. So if he's half Targaryen, is that enough for him and his descendants, especially since they did intermarry with the Targaryens several times? Did they have dragon dreams as well? Super chat here from Kraken Queen 50 PLN. Thank you for the great content as always. What are you guys looking forward to most in House of the Dragon? Oh, there's a lot to look forward to. You can take a brief detour from Baratheon dragon dreams for a second. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is what the hell is that? In House of the Dragon is there's a bunch of particular mysteries that I'm obviously very invested in. I want to know who lit the fire on Harwin Strong and Lionel Strong at Harrenhal. I'm definitely looking forward to, as I've made clear, I want to know more about like Viserys' relationship to dragon dreams, Rhaenyra, and and also Aegon the Conqueror, how this has really been sort of this undercurrent of the Targaryen family. It's something I've suspected and talked about a lot in the past, but it's never been this explicit. It's a little bit, it will be really interesting to see it on the screen and see these characters interacting with it on a personal level, much in the way that Dany does in A Song of Ice and Fire. and how it, when you compare that to Fire and Blood, how it sort of gets translated, and that could again be used to read the rest of the Targaryen history, and just like Emma did earlier with the prince and princess thing, find more parallels between Viserys and the rest of their line. So that stuff I'm really excited about. Larys Strong, I want to see what they do with Larys. He has not been billed as a main character. He's been in the secondary group. Obviously, he comes into his own in seasons 2 or 3, but very much looking forward to seeing Larys. Also, Alice Rivers, are you going to see her in the Harrenhal of Fire? In the promo they put out the other day, it looks like we're going to see Harwin Strong literally burned to death. And if Alice Rivers is there, if she caused it, I don't really know, but that would be cool to see. I love Karina Strick says, I love the theory that Alicent and Daemon bonked. Is that a thing? Is that a theory? Is that why Aemond looks like Daemon? That would be kind of wild if they were father and son. Yeah, good call, Austin Flowers. Adam Valorian on the God's Eye, definitely want to see that. I really want to see the role of the Children of the Forest, what they're doing in this timeline. Because as far as Fire and Blood is concerned, they basically don't exist. It's kind of their nature, where they don't want to be seen, so they're not. But you can sort of see their influence. And I proposed this in the video, talking about how they could possibly fake dragon dreams and how they could be responsible for sending them. So they might have a lot stronger hand in House of the Dragon than I think a lot of people realize. Like, they're not going to be inactive during this point. They've been trying for basically since the Targaryens landed to try and wed the Weirwoods and the dragons, ultimately culminating in Bloodraven. So they should be here. I don't know if they're going to be a character, like if we're going to see a three-eyed raven, I imagine we'll see the Children of the Forest on the Isle of Faces at some point. But characters like Alice Rivers and Larys Strong and the Blackwoods, as we get into seasons 2, 3, and maybe 4, should be the force, like the foot soldiers of the old gods, kind of pushing themselves into this Targaryen conflict. Actually, Grey Area made a tweet the other day, actually yesterday, where she said something like, if you think House of the Dragon is a Targaryen show, you're wrong. And I think Grey is correct. I think that the role of the old gods and the Children of the Forest, while they're not going to show up as heavily in season 1, as we get into the later seasons, there's going to be a much larger component of this idea of the dragons and the Weirwoods interacting with each other, basically through proxies, I guess. So that's something I'm really excited about, to see where that goes. 36 Wins, interesting name. How do you feel about the showrunners having to make choices on things that are left open by George's source material? Fine. It's written that way. It's written to allow an eventual adaptation to create its own story, or to decide between the different factions and truths that are presented, if it's some of them or none. Seems fine to me. I have no problem with that. Although I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter yesterday. Elio of Westeros.org wrote a quote-unquote review of Fire and Blood. He called it not a review. I think he's just trying to copy George or something like that. And he made this claim, and he's like, well, the showrunners, they made the choice that none of them were correct. I'm like, what? Of course they did. You didn't think it was a possibility that of the 3 ideas presented in Fire and Blood, that none of them might be right? That was just kind of insane to me. But yeah, I have no problem with it. Even if George wasn't heavily involved, I mean, it's an adaptation, so it's not going to be 1-to-1. That's kind of how it goes. To get back to the idea of Baratheons and dragon dreams. So one example that was brought up to me that I had totally forgotten is that Shireen has dreams of dragons. She has nightmares and she sees the dragons on Dragonstone coming to life. Literally the dragons waking from stone. She sees dragons in the sky coming down to get her and to eat her, I think, or something like that. And which by all accounts looks to be a dragon dream. And since she is a Baratheon and therefore relatively a Targaryen by blood, at this point, not that far removed either, because I think it's Stannis's grandmother that was a Targaryen princess that married into the Baratheon family. I think it was, I forget which generation it was, but it's relatively recent that this happened. So it would not be that crazy for Shireen to be getting them. And it kind of makes sense. Everything that she sees lines up with what we see from Dragon Dreams. Stannis certainly has his bad dreams where he Melisandre somehow frees his consciousness from his body and turns it into the Shadow Baby, which then kills Renly, and then also Courtney Penrose. So that's not a dragon dream, but it definitely is weird dreams. Yeah, that's right, Mallory. Oris Baratheon was Aegon the First half brother, supposedly. Oh, thank you for the super chat. $2 from San Rixian. Who is Joe Magician's favorite dragon? Ooh, that's a tough one. Who is my favorite dragon? I think it's Cannibal, but that's probably just because I'm a theory kind of person. Like my mind loves mysteries, and Cannibal is far and away the most mysterious dragon. There's so many questions about where he came from, why he's doing what he's doing, what's his relationship to the other dragons, that kind of thing, where it's like there's something there to scratch at, I guess. And it kind of intrigues me. Especially the idea that he's literally the Ouroboros I talked about in the other video. I talked about in the video that he is the dragon that eats its own tail. He's the dragon that eats... he's the embodiment of it. So it seems like George is putting more into Cannibal than he does to other dragons, especially the whole weird thing about how when Corlys Velaryon dies, they like give him a burial at sea, and then out of nowhere Cannibal shows up and flies over the boat or something like that, and it's noted in Fire and Blood that it's like a tribute to the sea snake. It's like, what the hell? Why? Why is Cannibal doing this? And then one explanation in the Fire and Blood is like, well, he was probably just hunting, it doesn't mean anything. But, you know, that's kind of I talked about this during the video, the Doylist versus the Watsonian. Watsonian, you can definitely see the idea that, like, it doesn't mean anything, but it's not a real history. George didn't have to write that in, so why did he? What's the point of linking Corlys to Cannibal, like, from a writing perspective? So I guess in terms of personality, what would be... favorite dragon? It's tough because when a lot of them just sort of take on the characteristics of their character. Matt Smith has talked about that a lot in interviews, that they are kind of one and the same. So if you're saying you like a dragon, you sort of almost, you like the rider at the same time. It's a good question. I guess I'll just say Melees, because I like Rhaenys a lot, since they're one and the same. but we're going to see a lot of their personality as the show goes on. So I'm sure my answer will change as we go along. I don't know. Balerian's kind of like the vanilla answer. He's the big bad dragon. He's the biggest one. He's the conqueror's dragon. It's like, don't have to min max your dragons. You know, like the one you like. Anyway, going back to the Baratheon dragon dreams. Rhaenys herself, I think, is part Baratheon. Her mother, she's her mother was a Baratheon, I think, too. So it'd be interesting to see how that filters down through the family, if there's other examples of it. I can't remember. This is why I put it on Twitter. I don't remember other examples of any Baratheons who explicitly had dragon dreams, but since they're so intermarried with the Targaryens, and they literally are them, it would be weird if they weren't, I guess, if there was an example somewhere other than Shireen. If you guys know any examples, throw them in the chat or the comments when you're listening to this, or you're listening to this back on replay. I don't really know. Christina Crindle says, Christina Keetle. Very interested to see Dreamfire Morning. I mean, there's some that look cool, but I'm more thinking about personality. Have to see what they act like. Like, they've made Craxes try and look like a big ol' like simultaneously terrifying and also snuggly, which is kind of an interesting idea to put into a dragon, I guess. Oh, by the way, if you guys slam the like button to 75 likes, I'll put on a silly hat. 100 likes, we're giving away a t-shirt. So all you guys lurking in the background, just go ahead and slam those. Bobby B dreams of dragons every night. I guess so. He does dream of killing Rhaegar, but that's sort of the idea of like a dream with a dragon in it, or is it a prophetic dream? That's one of the things that's so interesting about Shireen, is that her dream could very easily be prophetic, that it's a dream of her death, that she's seeing the flames that are coming for him. Coming for her, that Melisandre and eventually her father will burn her alive, and to become Azor Ahai, to wake the dragons from stone. It does appear to be prophetic. Also, she's kind of like her best friend's Patchface, who explicitly talks in weird riddles, so yeah. Craxes is weird that way. Oh, thank you for... Let's put on a silly hat. Oh, I have them up here now. There we go. That's right. I have my own George R. R. Martin hat. I even got myself a little turtle for it. So yeah. I don't see how much more of the Baratheons we're going to see in the show. They're not a huge part of it. But maybe Rhaenys will talk about it. That'd be kind of interesting. They're sort of on the periphery of this one. Is Aegon's failed invasion of Dorne a Vietnam allegory? So George has talked about this recently, where he is not making a lot of historical allegories in his writing, where it's not like one for one. He's definitely influenced by the conflicts he has seen in his life, but I don't think he's really writing them to be, this is what it was like in Vietnam. I'm explicitly writing Dorne as Vietnam, especially because, like, the setting's all wrong. It's a desert, not a jungle. But yeah. All right, let's see here. So we got about a half hour to go. If I've missed any of your questions, throw them again in the chat. Make sure you @ me, bro. And I got some few here we're going to go through. the Baratheons, that's what I mean they're on the periphery, where they are not the main characters or much as important as they were in A Song of Ice and Fire. There's a lot of houses that are like that, where they're going to take a real backseat to what we're used to from Game of Thrones and the book series. Tyrion does have dreams of dragons. It's unclear if that's meant to signal that he's a secret Targaryen or that he just really likes dragons. It's not just having dragons in your dreams. There's a lot of, you can have dreams of dragons in real life. It's whether or not they're prophetic in nature. Yeah, he doesn't write allegory. The influences are incidental or just unconscious rather than explicitly trying to write it. Like I think the example in the allegory thing that the Six is talking about, whereas people ask him, is the White Walker conflict about climate change? And he says, no, that's not what he was doing, but he sees the parallels and he thinks they're interesting. That's one of those things where like people need to get more used to death of the author. It's okay for George to not think of something for it to be okay to think about. It's this weird thing in the fandom where it's like he's the only one that matters. It's like, no, it's okay to have comparative literature analysis and all that stuff. Does Jon have a dragon dream? He has wolf dreams. He definitely has those. He uses ghost almost like a weird, almost like a broadcast tower in a way. He uses ghost to connect to his siblings. He wargs into Ghost, then Ghost has like wolf dreams, and then they see Bran, and it's this very strange thing. I don't remember if Jon has any dreams of dragons though. That would take a close reading that I do not remember. So a question I got from the YouTube video was Cafe Hinson, who said, I always thought Rhaegar's bookish youth and songs, and after quote-unquote reading an ancient scroll suddenly decided he needed to be trained as a warrior was all due to dreams. Summerhall, where he was born, and a place to which he kept going back. So this is something that a few people brought up, and I go both ways on it. Did Rhaegar explicitly have dragon dreams, like his father Aerys seemed to do? I don't think there's any. I think both are probably acceptable. I don't think it's necessary that he literally has the dreams, but the idea that I really like the idea that he's reading in scrolls and that he found like signs of importance, or in my Aim in the Dreamer video, I suggest that he found Aemon's writings back in King's Landing about like Daeron and prophecy and stuff like that, and that's how they connected and started writing each other. But it could definitely be both. There's such a high incidence of Targaryens having dragon dreams that somebody like Rhaegar, who believes in them so strongly, that I don't think it's a problem. I think it works both ways. It would be funny though if Rhaegar is the one who doesn't have them, but he's the one that ended up causing such a problem for the rest of Westeros. Kind of like a bystander in the after effects of the ripples in the dreamscape and all these prophetic dreams. He doesn't even have to have them for them to ruin his life. I think that's something I sort of talked about, but I just make it a little bit more explicit that having dragon dreams is a bad thing. It basically destroys the life of everyone that has them. The only one it didn't is Daenerys, because she was able to use it to avoid the doom for her and the rest of her family. But pretty much everyone else that gets these things, it destroys their lives in different ways, either explicitly by them seeing bad things coming, or the weight of it kind of destroying them personally, or kind of almost driving them crazy trying to deal with them. It's if you really wanted a cause for the Targaryen coin flip idea, it's definitely Dragon Dreams. That's what the coin thing actually means. That's what it's referencing. Yes, O'Hara Young talking about the idea that he most likely talked to the ghost of High Heart. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a very high chance that that he went to her and played harp, because obviously we see the ghost of High Heart in the main books, where how did the Brotherhood Without Banners pay her? In songs. And what is Rhaegar famous for? Singing and playing a harp. So it makes a lot of sense that he probably spent a lot of time going and talking to the ghost of High Heart, who very well could be the same Woods Witch that Jenny of Old Stones brought to court. It would be a nice kind of completion of a pattern there. Yeah, I'm glad we're all here. We're having a good time before House of the Dragon drops and everything. This kind of goes into high speed. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I'm going to be doing 2 streams tomorrow. I know, kind of crazy. The first one, well, there's obviously going to be the ones I'm doing after the episode. So the episode starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time, ends at around 10ish. So every night after the episode goes live, I'm going to be going live on a stream like we did for season 8 and just do a rapid reaction thing. I'm lining up guests and stuff. But this first one, which is going to be us. So looking forward to that. The second stream I'm going to do is Robert, aka In Deep Geek. I popped into his stream the other day when he was doing a Q&A, and I guess it got him. It's like, oh yeah, Matt exists. So he sent me a DM, and I'm going to show up to do his pre-episode stream. And I don't know how long it's going to be, but obviously I'll tweet out the link and stuff like that. Going to be doing previews sort of like this. I'm sure Robert will have a lot of surprise questions, and he will try and shock me with them in order to see if I can come up with the answers on the fly. That's one of those things that, if you guys have ever seen me and Robert interact on streams, his absolute favorite thing to do is to not tell me what's coming, and then just ask me off the wall questions and just like random lore stuff to see if I can come up with the answer or if I can think of something. And I do, but it's just like it's funny how that happens, where he just like likes to test how far my knowledge and imagination goes on the fly. Did Egg's brother had to self-medicate with the drink due to dragon dreams? Yeah, if Robert Baratheon had dragon dreams, his drinking would make sense. Anyway, so I think we're going live at 5 p.m. tomorrow. I think that's what Robert said it was. Let me check the retweet. He put out a thing. 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Let me grab the link to the stream. If you guys, I'm not going to be doing my own stream stuff. I mean, preview stuff. I like doing the reactions more. But, yeah. Oh. Okay. Let's see if this works. History of Westeros is going to have me on at some point, too. I think it's next week. So basically, I'm going to be on camera for like 10 weeks straight at this point. I can't seem to push the link into the chat. Could one of the mods grab it and throw it in there? Oh, wait. There it goes, maybe? I don't really know what's going on. YouTube Studio does not like me. It like basically doesn't work. Oh, that reminds me. I don't know if we're going to have the same kind of volume of visitors as we did last year, but I don't know if you guys remember, but like when I would do streams normally before season 8, I would have like 20, 30, 40 people, and then after the episode, it would spike up to like 1,000. So if any of you guys in the chat are mods for other channels, shoot me a message, And if you're able to be around for the after show streams, just tell me which channels you're a mod for, and that kind of thing. And if you're around here a lot, I'm just looking to add a few of them because it's probably going to be crazy. It was last year too, especially people who came in and were like spamming spoilers. So yeah, looking to add maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 mods or something like that as we push into it, just so that I don't want to overwhelm the ones I already have. So yeah, on Twitter or email, or if you're one of my patrons, shoot me something in the Slack or something like that. It would be very helpful because I will need people. And of course, it could be the same thing and it's like the same numbers and nobody comes in. But if they do, I need to be prepared for it. And I'm not. So yeah. Yeah, Sandra is 1,000 eyes in one. Let's see here. What was I talking about? Odds won a hole. Do you think Jaehaerys was actually a good king or Meister propaganda? He was a good king. He was a king for 70 years and nobody killed him. So that's usually a pretty good thing. Whether he's a good man is another question. George and Patty Considine have been talking a lot in the run-up to the show that Viserys is a good man and a bad king. And I'm guessing that Jaehaerys is the opposite. That he's not a good person, but the way he's not a good person made him an effective leader. That kind of thing. Where we know how to find the porno sites. I took care of that because I have subscriber chat on, and they will be for the whole season. So if the porn sites want to spam on my channel, they're going to have to sub first. Got them. Actually, if there's anyone trying to chat and you can't, that's why. You have to sub to the channel. Let's see here. Let's grab another question here from the video. From Hadai Rua. They said that awesome that this is being confirmed. Ever since I heard you guys mention about other kings having dreams like they were the blessed, I've come to think that all Targaryen kings reacted in their own way to the dreams. Like, for example, Aegon IV's debauchery as a nihilistic answer, as he may have felt there was no hope for the future without dragons. And I think Aegon IV is actually a really good kind of king to zone in on, and we're talking about this stuff because, yeah, it does seem like Aegon is so self-destructive. It seems like he, especially with the thing on his deathbed where he legitimized all of his bastards, man, does it seem like he was trying to blow up the realm. But is that because he saw the end coming? Like the nihilistic idea here, it's like, well, the world's going to end, there's nothing we can do to stop it, might as well have fun, that kind of thing. The other way is if it'd be funny if Aegon essentially took the idea that he had to kind of screw his way to having enough Targaryens that maybe the dragons will start hatching again. There's definitely one thing that's extremely explicit within Aegon IV's reign is that he had a succession crisis very similar to Viserys, where he wanted to make Daemon Blackfyre his heir, but Daeron was his heir, and he sort of had the opposite problem where he kept trying to disinherit Daeron in favor of Daemon, and the court politics kept making it so that he couldn't. And I guess Daeron kept getting the lords and stuff to rally around him throughout his life, and also Aemon the Dragon Knight really stepped in. But it would be interesting if, just like we're probably going to find out that Viserys was convinced that Rhaenyra was the princess that was promised, it'd be kind of fascinating to learn that Aegon actually had a reason beyond just thinking that Daeron was a bastard. Like, what if he was convinced that Daemon was the prince that was promised or something like that? He's definitely one of those characters that gets a lot of write-up about him in the history of A Song of Ice and Fire, but there's very little direct information about him. You don't see a lot of conversations with him. There's really no personal interactions. It's just sort of getting the outline of what's going on with him. So we know House of the Dragon's going to run about 3 to 4 seasons with the Dance of the Dragons. If they decide to do the Blackfire Rebellion, I would not be shocked if they started it off with Aegon IV being the anti-Viserys. Or I guess, what's a better way of saying this? That he had the similar inputs into his decision making. You know, that maybe he was having dragon dreams, maybe he did have these kind of prophecies being given to him, but his reaction to it is just very different. Yes, that's right, Billy B. The Targaryens think they are the main characters. It's almost like they know they're in a book series. It'll be fascinating to find out, though. Oh, by the way, 10 more likes and we're going to give away a t-shirt from my Threadless shop. You too can get yourself an ass waffle blanket. The correct way to pronounce Song of Ice and Fire, ass waffle. It is kind of a fun meta thing, though, that the Targaryens seem to be aware that they're the magical forces in a book series. I kind of made that comparison that, like, when you're talking about the idea of, like, history being deterministic and the idea that the Targaryens can't really escape their fate, like, within the story itself, within a Watsonian thing, you can sort of see how that's true and how they react to it. But if you think about it, like, from the outside perspective, they just know they're in a book. They're like, boy, it seems like what's about to happen to me is already predicted. That's like pages, like the ink is dry on the pages or something like that. When Bloodraven's talking about, like, the idea of the different weirwoods being on, like, the edges of the river, and that's how they see through the river of time. It's kind of, you can definitely imagine the weirwoods themselves as, like, the literal books that we read. That's kind of the idea behind them. It's a funny way George did it. It's like a very writer's in joke, I guess. Oh, that blanket is soft. It's very soft. Just Reds. Hey, Reds. Do you think we're going to name drop for extinct Valyrian houses in House of the Dragon, or a name drop for Targaryens before Aegon the First? So, name drop for Targaryens before Aegon the First. Definitely, we're most likely going to hear about Daenys. We'll probably hear about Aenar the Exile. If you're talking about in Valyria before Aenar and Daenys, I would be surprised. It kind of depends on how far back into the history they want to go. We may hear more about the other Lords of Dragonstone, though. There's like 4 or 5 generations between Aenar and Aegon, I think. Or is it 3? 3 or 4, something like that. So Viserys and Rhaenyra seem very into history itself and the legacy of the Targaryen family. So, like, when you're looking at the dagger thing, where's my dagger? When you're talking about the Valyrian steel dagger, it was pointed out, and I incorrectly thought it wasn't there. It just looked like kind of like the swirls on the metal from Valyrian steel, like Damascus steel. But they released higher res images, and you can see quite clearly that there are words written on the Valyrian steel dagger. And that could very well connect back to Valyria, connect back to Daenys, that kind of thing. So, like, they may use this artifact kind of like as a bridge between them. There we go. As for the name drop for extinct Valyrian houses and House of the Dragon, maybe not this run, the Dance of the Dragons. Maybe if they eventually go back and do an Aegon the Conqueror thing, maybe we'll hear about them then, because it would be more fresh in their history and knowledge. Although if you're talking about Viserys and he's like building a Valyrian steel city, I wonder if he will also get information about the families themselves. Otherwise, there's not really much there. If you read The World of Ice and Fire and the main books, we don't even know the name of another family. The only Dragon Lord we know that survived the Doom is Orion. I don't even know what house he's from. So, yeah. Don't really know about that one. I wonder if we're going to see more of the Celtigars. They're like the forgotten Valyrians. Nobody likes the Celtigars, not even the Velaryons and the Targaryens. They're sitting there the whole time, and as far as we know, I don't think they have any intermarriage with the Targaryen family. It's like they're too low-class Valyrians for them. Maybe they're just assholes. Quite possibly they're just assholes. I do wonder what kind of flashbacks we'll get, though. Will we see Daenerys' dream? That'd be kind of cool. They've showed it off in the History and Lore series from Game of Thrones, but I don't know how hard they're going to push this. If we hear a lot about her and we hear a lot about Sign's importance, it would be very interesting if they have some sort of set piece showing the Doom or showing Daenerys. That'd be kind of cool. The Celticars have a Valyrian steel axe. Yes, they do. That's about it. The other thing we know about them is the people of Crackclaw Point think they're a-holes, and that's about it. Need more info on Orion. What happens to him after the Doom? It appears that he got ambushed on his way to Valyria. Because he raised an army. He was trying to walk down to Valyria and disappeared. I'm guessing that the rest of the Valyrian daughters were like, we're cool without the freehold here. We're now free to do whatever we want. And then basically took out Orion and his army. Because that is the relationship of the Valyrian colonies to the freehold. They didn't like the freehold. They thought they were arrogant pricks who held back their dragons and threatened to burn them all the time for loyalty. They were not fans, and they would not want the return of a Valyrian emperor like Orion. Which is what he was trying to do. He crowned himself Emperor of Valyria. Hard pass on that one from Volantis, I would guess. Let's see here. Oh, there's mention of other houses, Belaris and the dragon Terax. Oh, I missed those ones. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Or didn't remember it. That's right, I didn't remember it. My memory is not as perfect as In Deep Geek thinks it is. There's a lot of information, and I actually don't have it all stored in my brain. I try, but I don't. House Belaris. Belaris family, one of the 40 families. They went extinct in the Doom of Valyria or its aftermath. Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. She's the one that went to Sothorios. Okay. I don't think they survive, though. They die in the Doom. Dragon Rider and Lys? I don't remember that one. So let's see here. We talked about Amanda and that she thinks that the Sign's importance might show up along with Alice Rivers. I think that's correct. Me and Amanda are definitely on team. We're going to see the Children of the Forest in some way during House of the Dragon. It would be silly not to. Where is Orion mentioned? It's Aurion. He's in the World of Ice and Fire, I think. It's in the aftermath of the Doom. He's a dragon rider who happened to not be in Valyria at the time. After he heard about the Doom, he got on his dragon, named himself Emperor of Valyria, and then raised an army to march down to retake the freehold, and then disappeared either en route or in Valyria. It's presented as very mysterious where he went, but it seems pretty clear that he just got ambushed. That nobody wanted him to come back to the freehold, and they just attacked him along the way. So this was from Christina K. She said in the comments of my video, there has to be some legitimacy to the dreams. Reason being, if it was only the children or glass candles, then why are the dreams exclusive to Valyrians as far as we know? Or obviously those with the blood of the first men. It seems that there are restrictions on who can be contacted. Otherwise, everyone would have prophetic dreams and would be part of how Westeros works. Possibly the Red Priests learned to tap into these visions using study and tools to do what the Targaryens do naturally. I think it's probably these connections to fire magic makes them a window into something men were never meant to see. Whatever it is that makes them able to control dragons also comes with the cost of seeing as a god does. So I suggested in my video, if you haven't watched it, that because you can fake a dragon dream, that somebody with a glass candle or a green seer could potentially mimic everything we see that the Targaryens are receiving. You have to assume that some of them are. Kind of the example I used is that, like, imagine you're walking into a store and they claim they have like some exclusive item you can only buy there. But then on like the side streets next to the store, there's like two guys that have tables set up with identical fakes. Now, it doesn't mean that everything in the store that has the exclusive item is faked, but you'd be stupid not to wonder how many of them are. If they can be faked, you have to assume that they are being, and that some of them can be. So, Uriastash, don't like when I make definitive comments? I mean, it's just my opinion. If you don't like it, then don't. I'm sorry I offended you by having a take on something in a fictional history. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing I was talking about in the video, where there's no mechanism at all described for where these things are coming from. Whereas with green dreams, it's clear that many of them are coming from the children of the forest themselves, and that we see the examples that from glass candle users, that they look pretty much identical to the ones that we see earlier. And for what was the other one I was thinking about? That Aemon and Sam are being watched constantly by Marwyn the Mage and are seemingly unaware of it. Now, there are some hints to Aemon maybe realizing that somebody's watching him, because he makes a few comments about what Sam sees later in the Citadel. Like, he talks about the Sphinx being the riddle, not the Riddler, which could very well could very well be an allusion to Alaris. So, long story short, it's not, if they can be faked, as I said, some of them may be. So trying to parse them is really hard. Maybe George at some point is going to say, like in his video that I was talking about at the top of the stream, that that he says that there's some sort of connection to the dragons that makes the magic work. Maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe dragon dreams are literally coming from the dragons. All right, well, you're getting a timeout, buddy. Maybe that's literally what's going on. Maybe they are coming from the dragons themselves, like how Daenerys sees her dragons coming, that there seems to be some kind of connection to it. But yeah, it's curious. George has given us examples and reasons for how the other ones work. But notably neglected dragon dreams for it. And that's kind of the thing I was, oh, buddy. Oh, it's two, buddy. God damn it. That's what's slowing down. I need to disable that thing. So, okay, so where are they coming from? it's either dragons or they're fakes. Basically, that's what George has given us in the books to work with. So I did sort of come down during the video itself where I talked about how maybe some of them are fake and some of them are real, but if they're real, we really don't know where they're coming from. It would make more sense for George to not make them all fake, I would think, because it kind of it undercuts a lot of what makes it special about how the Targaryens are, and their offspring are really reacting to it if they're all fake. It really just makes it a story about them getting hoodwinked. And that would be kind of weird for him to do. So I think I may have said it a little bit too definitive in the video, like, because they're all they may be. But it's probably, like, it depends on which ones. And I also noted that, like, the glass candles weren't working, basically, between the end of The Last Dragon and Dany's dragons hatching, so there's that whole time frame where glass candles probably aren't being used. It kind of goes both ways. But I think I agree with what Christina is saying, that other aspects of fire magic seem to be real, so why would these be totally fake? There should be something real to them, I just don't know what it is. I guess that's what I'm saying. Maybe we're going to learn about it. Maybe House of the Dragon will make it more explicit. That they keep seeing the dragon seems to be indicative of that. But again, when you're talking about how Bloodraven and Bran can basically shapeshift in dreams and change what they look like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I tried to break them down in terms of where you try and figure out which one's real or not. It just becomes impossible. Like, if I made that point in the video where it was like, well, if Quaithe is every dream that Quaithe sends, is she like signing them? Because she shows up in some of them, or her voice shows up on them, but it's not always the same thing. She could be sending more than the ones she does and then just not appearing in them, that kind of thing. If it sounds uncertain and it sounds like I'm not really sure, it's because I'm not, and it's because I don't think we have enough information to go on where they're all coming from. And then that George introduced the idea that they could be fake makes it even more complicated to actually parse what's going on. Do all dragon... Oh, sorry, super chat here from Kieran Gray. $10. Keep on with your wild theories. Some of us love to hear it. Yeah, thanks. I hope not all of them are wild. Obviously, some are more speculative than others. That's kind of the nature of my channel itself. I like coming up with ideas and using imagination and stuff like that, and I'm sorry if that bothers people. Not a lot I can do about that. Wild theories like, is cannibal related to the Velaryons? That is some weapons grade tinfoil right there, because there's literally one line to suggest it. And even then, George instantly goes back and negates it and says, like, well, that probably means nothing. It's like, all right. So any last questions we got here? Just throw them in the chat. Anything about House of the Dragon? Anything about prophecies and dreams? Oh, I'm sorry. We just hit 100 likes. Thank you guys for slamming the like button. Let's go ahead and give away a t-shirt. Let's do a giveaway, and keyword dreamer. Type the word dreamer in chat. Oh. If you want to win yourself a free t-shirt from my Threadless shop. If you've won recently, try not to enter, because it will just, you know, not be nice if somebody new got them, but, you know, type it in chat. I'll give it a few minutes, and then we'll go ahead and roll it and give it away. So let's see here. Oh, Emma also had a really good comment on the patron Slack where she brought up the idea of, if she says, assuming that Aegon's dream is real and not solely the manipulation of Greenseers, implies that his conquering of Westeros because of the threat of the others was also, in some relatively direct way, the catalyst that triggered their return. And I think that's a pretty insightful point from Emma there, that the others had, if they were coming back, they took a long time. They spent thousands of years more or less doing nothing since their defeat during the Long Night. So what the hell was going on that made them decide now? And I think Emma brings up a good point, that the threat of the Valyrians and their dragons coming to Westeros may have been what convinced them that they needed to start to rearm too. That it's kind of like a conflict that is created by the existence of the more dragons in Westeros, that the others are like, these people can wipe us out, we have to get ready. And it'd be funny on the other side, Aegon's like, these people can wipe us out, we need to get ready. And in the middle of it, you have the Children of the Forest maybe pushing both sides together into war. They do seem to sit in an interesting central location to the forces of ice and fire, that if they're manipulating the Valyrians, as I think they probably are, and if they're messing with the others beyond the wall, and the others seem to know it because, you know, they're surrounding Bloodraven's cave, and they seem to be very keen on attacking the remaining Children of the Forest, it would be fascinating if that is the kind of the relationship that the children created the conflict in order to essentially have their two potential enemies wipe each other out. That's something that George has written into his other stories, where kind of manipulating sort of magical-ish creatures have a tendency in his world to manipulate different characters into different factions into fighting each other for the benefit of the manipulators. That's definitely in the story, what is it? And 7 times never kill man. The Janshi basically use prophetic dreams that they send using their magical pyramid things. I guess that's kind of what they are, in order to get the humans to inflame them and get them to fight each other and do like very harmful things to their colony, which ends up causing its destruction. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that George is writing a similar thing with the children. And as Emma brings up, it seems like it would be the kind of manipulation that would cause the conflict itself. If the others are reacting to the Valyrians letting, and then the Valyrians reacting to the others coming in their dreams, that would be kind of interesting how that would work. Let's see here. We got 26 people entered. Last call. If you guys want to win a free t-shirt, type Dreamer into the chat. Question: where can you read A Song for Leah? You can read it in his book. Hang on a second. You can read it here in Dream Songs, Volume 1 and 2. It's a collection that George, of his own short stories and novellas and scripts, and he actually writes about them in between, so it's sort of autobiographical. A Song for Leah is in here, I believe, but there's also a bunch of other books that has it. I forget which, but a lot of these books up here are actually, let me get out of the way. A lot of these up here are short story collections. He actually hasn't written that many books, but he's written a lot of short stories and novellas, and he likes to package them up, or he used to, into short story collections to sell. So A Song for Leah has been in quite a lot of them because it was his first book. I mean, his first story, so it's not hard to find. You could probably also find it online somewhere. It's relatively short, so But I would definitely, if you're looking to get into Martin's older work, I would definitely check out Dream Songs. It's a really good introduction. You get a really wide breadth of his different kind of stories and how he thinks about them, which is often, if you're trying to predict him as a writer, it's often more important to not just read what he has, but also to get his thoughts on them, which what Dream Songs provides. All right, last, here we go. 36 wins. There you go, buddy. You have won yourself a t-shirt from my Threadless shop, so send me a message on Twitter. You can send me a DM, and I'll send you a code, or you can email me at AskJoeMagician@gmail.com. Oh, I'm sorry, Shelly. You just barely missed it. You did have a chance there. I'm sorry. I still have a few more to give away, so don't worry about it. You'll have more chances. Is there anything else I wanted to get to? So Curtis Franks also left another, as I said, he left a lot of good questions on the video itself, and one of them is, do we think that dragon genes were common to other Valyrians or either other Targaryens prior to the Doom? And the answer is yes. Bloodraven in the Mystery Knight makes a comment that the Targaryens have been having dragon dreams for generations going back to Valyria, which of course includes Daenerys. She was born and raised in Valyria before they went to Dragonstone. But it would be, I would assume that if it has something to do with their bloodline, like it seems that it does, like we were talking about how the Baratheons may have them, if there's a member of the Velaryons family that has them, like what if the Strongs, Rhaenyra's children, have them as well? The Targaryens probably intermarried quite a bit in the Valyrian freehold. We see them do that with the Velaryons in Westeros, kind of because they're out of options. It's one of those things where they are definitely incestuous when they get to Westeros, but I would guess they were much less so when they were in the freehold, because obviously they would want to make political marriages. And when everybody's a dragon rider, then you wouldn't need to, there'd be less of a chance, I guess, of their idea of diluting the bloodline. You know, even if it's, you imagine that the 40 families were less 40 families and more kind of like one big one after a certain point. They just kind of intermarried with each other. So I would guess it's not just a Targaryen thing to get the dragon dreams. That was probably relatively common among the 40 families of the freehold. But what seems to make them a bit different is that they seem to have taken them seriously. Like that's the one thing that Daenerys and Aenar did, is they acted on them. And it's probably the kind of thing where the rest of the freehold did not take the dreams super seriously. Because where is it? It's probably the World of Ice and Fire. That's where a lot of this stuff is. Where the rest of the freehold laughed at Aenar. They laughed at Daenerys for giving up the freehold to go to Westeros. Now, part of that could be the idea that the 40 families basically treated themselves as gods. They were like, we are masters of this world. We can do whatever we want. There will be no doom of Valyria on our watch. We can overcome anything. That's probably part of it. But kind of another idea is that they seem to find it funny that Aenar would believe Daenerys and make such an extreme action on it. So I guess a long-winded way of answering it is there probably were dragon dreams common in Valyria in the before Daenerys and the rest of the Valyrian freehold, but I'm not sure they were always taken seriously. That was a lot of talking. That 2 hours just kind of flew. So I think that's probably about it today. Oh yeah, Kieran Grant makes the point the Faceless Man ruined that plan. That is definitely in the Slack. That's something that, hang on a second. Who was talking about that? Ramona Zamfir, she asked the question. I think I talked about this during the What Caused the Doom of Valyria stream, that I wondered if the Targaryens paid off the Faceless Men to cause the Doom. It is one of those things that would kind of undercut it if like Daenerys dreamed of the Doom because the Targaryens were planning to cause it. But then also, why would they warn the rest of the Freehold about it if they were going to kill them? I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense in that way. If they were going to hire the Faceless Men to cause the Doom of Valyria directly, then why warn them? It's not a YouTube live stream without 2 hours and a sore throat. Yeah, I've been trying to make sure I drink more while I'm streaming, because with no break, it you can probably hear it. I need to preserve my voice for tomorrow afternoon with In Deep Geek and then after the episode itself. So, although I'm guessing coffee doesn't help with that, which is what I'm drinking. Yeah, thanks all you guys for hanging out during this last Saturday stream before House of the Dragon starts. After the episode, definitely come hang out. We're going to do a live reaction thing. I mean, we already know it's going to be a lot about the Great Council of 101. They're going to talk about prophecy and dreams. So everything we're talking about today will come up on Sunday. And then there'll be videos coming out during the week. Well, at least one video. You guys also probably saw on my channel that I released 2 shorts, which is like YouTube TikTok. I'm going to be doing more of those. The one I put out the other day was literally just to learn how to use green screens, which is how I was able to do it, where it was me cut out and then stuff behind me. So I just needed an easy topic, so I chose that one. But there are going to be more in-depth ones. I have like 15 of them written, so look out for that. Look out for the full videos during the week and the streams after every one. We're going to have a lot of guests coming on, which I have to set up. But anyway, I hope everybody has a good Saturday, and I will see you